For my Red Pill project, I decided to learn and understand a culture I was not familiar with. For my CDZ, I ended up picking the Turkish culture. Growing up, I was taught the American culture and a little bit of the Mexican culture. I never wanted to branch out to any other culture because I wasn't forced to, but if I was, I know it would make me feel uncomfortable. In order to get an understanding of this culture, I visited two places. I went to a Mediterranean/Turkish cafe called the Caspian Cafe. I went there 4 times and stayed there approximately an hour each time. The first time I went there, I took my friend Kasira with me to have lunch, and then later that night we came back to watch like the belly dancers perform, which was pretty cool. The other time I went was with my mom and my sister, and we went there for tea and their desserts. The other place I attended was a sweet Turkish lady's house. Her name was Salia, and that's where I did my interview, and she taught me how to bake a Turkish dessert, baklava. For my inward investigation, I remember first waiting outside of the Caspian Cafe, waiting for Kasira to arrive, and while waiting, people would be leaving the cafe, so I'd like always shoot them a friendly smile, and usually people like would smile back, but in this case they didn't, and I don't know why, but that made me feel really uncomfortable and like almost insecure in a way. However, as the day went on, all of my doubtful thoughts started like going away, which brings me to my second inward investigation point, which is that everyone I talked to was super nice. I talked to my waitress a lot, and every time I came back to the cafe, she always served me, so that was pretty cool. And for the Turkish lady, Salia, she was so kind and caring and super funny. We literally laughed like the whole time I was there. Then for my last key result, I found this project actually fun. Going into this project, I honestly thought it wasn't going to be interesting, but it turned out that it was. I danced with belly dancers and I had a great time baking with Salia. In the end, I realized similarities in our culture, so it made me feel more comfortable because I learned so many things I would have never known before. As for my outward investigation, it was much easier for me because I only had to jot some things down, like what I observed. My first example is when I went and saw the cafe. I remember at first I thought how it was going to be like a Starbucks cafe with like all these windows around to like let the natural light in, and then people were going to be so busy working on computers or talking, and that it was just going to be busy in general. Well, when I actually saw the cafe, the Caspian Cafe, it ended up being like the complete opposite. Kasir and I walked in and it was very dimmed. They had many windows, but they were all covered in semi-dark curtains, and absolutely no one was there. Not until like later when a family came in, but it was very different than what I imagined. As for the social environment, my second key result, I expected two different things. First, for the cafe, I expected everyone to judge me and to be somewhat harsh. This was sort of true because people did look at me strange. However, when I talked to the waitress or even the belly dancers, they were very kind-hearted, and I enjoyed talking with them. As for Salia, I expected her to be very sweet and very kind, and this ended to be very true. She welcomed me with open arms and made sure I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. For my third key result, I wanted to talk about the human behavior, which was interesting. At the cafe, I expected people to be very loud, but they weren't. Not until the evening time when the belly dancers performed. Then everyone was talking loud and laughing and just having a fun time. As for Salia's house, I imagine it just like my household. Like dogs were barking, the TV playing in the background, and like there's food always cooking on the stove. The way she treated her family was just like any other mother. She was sweet, caring, kind, and I didn't expect any less of her. As for my interview with Salia, the insight was very interesting. I learned many things that I did not know. However, during the interview, it was very hard to understand her because she has a very thick accent, so it was kind of fun to like guess what she was trying to say. Um, all in all, like the Turkish culture is very family oriented. Everything's different than the American culture. Like food, for example, like for here we eat like burgers, like lots of meat, and we eat like junk food, like potato chips. But in Turkey, all they really eat is vegetables and bread. Like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's all they eat, and they rarely have desserts. The religion there, they're Muslim, like 99% of their people are Muslim, and like 99% of Americans are like Christianity or Catholic or whatever. Also, in America, like you'll see people like wearing crosses, and in Turkey, people wear something called the evil eye, that protects them from like the evil spirits. So overall, this made me gain insight about the Turkish culture, which I didn't know much about. I had a fun time with this project, and I was glad to have experienced some of the Turkish culture myself. I was glad to have chosen the red pill.